Happy Monday. It's Ashley Corville with the Complete Mortgage team, and I have with me Mr. Dennis Jones.
Good morning. It's Dennis Jones of Keller Williams Realty.
Perfect. Thanks for coming on today.
I'm excited to be here.
How was your New Year's?
I was good. Pretty quiet, pretty chill. Just
Different?
very different.
Yeah.
Very 2020.
Yeah,
but
very.
it was still cool.
Yeah, very much. The New Year is one of my favorite times of year, right? I love the holiday season, but like a fresh start always feels good to me.
Yep.
Monday is my favorite day of the week,
Right.
and the New Year is like my favorite season.
Yeah. It was very fitting to start the new year off on Monday.
Yeah, and I'm really excited to have you on here because we've been putting out these series for a good handful of weeks. We took a break during the holidays, and we've talked a lot about like inventory and what's been going on in our market, but we haven't talked a whole lot about how to buy a house. And that's always like a really scary piece for people. And I really wanted to talk about like how much money does it really like cost to get into a house. So we're going to talk about the loan programs like just a little bit and like how much of a down payment we need. Right? Dennis, how long have you been doing this now?
So November of 2020 made 8 years for me in real estate.
So like 8 years is sort of a veteran.
Yeah.
You're on like the farther side, veteranish.
Yeah.
You've seen a lot of loans.
Right.
You've done a lot of house loans, sold homes,
Process quite a few times.
Quite a few times.
Right.
There we go. Thanks for helping me out on that one. And so you've seen them all, you've gone through it, and some transactions are easier than others. Right?
Yeah. Now it's it's a challenge, but we make it happen.
We make it happen. Absolutely. So I figured we would talk about like the lowest down payment option up to like the highest, and we'll kind of just like go in a row. And one of the most common programs around here is our USDA loan. It's a rural development loan, sometimes it's called. It's backed by the USDA department, like the same people that stamp our meat and things like that also back this program. And it's really meant for low to moderate income earners to buy a house with no money down. How many times do you see a USDA loan come through on a contract?
The majority of my contracts are USDA.
Yeah.
It's USDA.
And USDA is probably one of the more difficult loans we do.
Yeah.
It's a little more restrictive because it has a no money down system in there. And so there's some, I guess we'll call them like hoops to jump through, right? Yeah. And so the first thing we always look at is the property in a USDA area. And so how do you figure that out?
I kind of just know, just from doing so many USDA deals. But if there's a property that I'm uncertain about, I just call my lender and say, hey, can you check this property and see if it's RD or real development eligible based on its location? Yeah, and so we do. We plug it into a system, a USDA link. It's a public link, but you plug it in, you plug in the address, and it tells us whether it's in the zone or not. Correct.
If it's eligible or not. So like that's the first thing. The property has to be eligible, and then there's an income threshold.
Correct.
And quite honestly, I haven't pulled the 2021 income guidelines. It's around you have a family of 4, it's like right at 90,000, and if you have a family of 5 or more, it's a little bit higher. And so as lenders, we have to figure out, well, do you income qualify? And one of the hardest parts, it's not the person on the loan, it's the entire household. So if you have a spouse or even a child that's in the house that works, if you have a 18 or 19 or 20-year-old, if they're in the house and they're working, or you have the mom or dad lives with you, all of that has to be considered. And so I say that not to scare you, but just so you know that like this program is available, but there's some hoops to jump through.
Right. So it's not just the borrower's income, it's the household income.
And that can like sort of throw things off. If, even if, like I said, a child, that's probably the most common we see. If they got a little part-time job and they're making $5,000 a year, that like might throw you over the income threshold, and then you get kicked out. So like maybe that child needs to fly the nest.
Or quit their job.
There's some things that we got to talk about, but it's just something to be aware about. And then the next thing is the next loan program we're going to talk about is our veterans, our VA home loan. And we don't see a ton of that around here. And I think that's not because we don't have a ton of military or veterans in the state of Louisiana. I think it's like they're just so fearful of using it. And I think agents and sellers are a little bit scared to accept a VA offer. And so that's a thing.
Right.
And then veterans, like if they've dealt with the VA system and they've had a bad experience, they don't really want to use that loan program. But I definitely wanted to touch on it. It is a no money down program. So like you don't have to put any money down. You can, but you don't have to. And it's only for qualified military and our veterans. And I don't mean well qualified as far as like credit score or money they make. I mean, like there's an actual definition put out by VA that says you have to serve X amount of time to be eligible for the program. So that's sort of a hiccup, and that's kind of defined. So we're going to talk about that with our veterans. But it is the best program out there for vets. And the reason I wanted to bring it up is because if you're a veteran and you're eligible for the VA, you've earned your right to use that. So I want you like to know that that's an option and not to be fearful to like look at it.
Right.
What are some concerns you have when you like see a VA deal come through?
For my buyer, I really don't have any concern because it's a good loan program for them to take advantage of. Now, if I have the seller, I may be a little concerned because the seller may have to do certain things to their property,
right,
to make it VA eligible as far as condition.
Yeah.
If I have a VA buyer, I'll look for things that I think the VA might flag. That way we can address it in the beginning.
Yeah,
you know?
that makes it easier. And people they have a thought that like the VA home loan requires more.
Right.
And really like RD, FHA, and VA have very similar guidelines as far as the condition of the home.
Right.
And it's tough because I'm not an appraiser. I like to stay in my lane, right? I'm the lender.
Right.
You're the agent.
Right.
And then there's appraisers out there, right? And they have their own set of rules. And I don't want to know every rule about that because I just want to be really good at what I do.
Correct.
But it's a very large book that they have to like go through to make sure it meets. And so it is hard sometimes for agents and lenders to see like, is this house going to qualify or not? But that's really on all of our government loan programs. And one of the great benefits of a VA loan when it comes to the appraisal is if it's not going to meet appraised value, they give you advance notice and they let you fight it up front. And so that's a benefit for a seller to know if the appraiser is going to come in short. You get to do some work up front to prove to the appraiser. Yeah, it's called the Tidewater Act. We actually have one that flagged this morning, so that's why it's like top of mind for me. So the listing agent is going to get notice that the home doesn't appraise for the purchase price, and it'll allow the listing agent to give comps, 3 to 5 comps, to prove the value. And then you just know you've done your work. So it really is an advantage on that side for the seller. So kind of goes in both ways.
Did not know that.
Yay! I love that we've caught something today. Absolutely. Next common program, FHA. It's backed by the Federal Housing Administration. You've probably seen this a lot.
Yep.
Yeah.
Do a lot of FHA and USDA.
Yeah.
Yep.
Those are two of the most common programs.
Correct.
It's top of what I do for sure. Yeah. FHA is a great program. I think when people hear Federal Housing Administration, they think it's like the government is running it, just sort of true. They're insuring it, they're backing it, they're letting you know, they're insuring it for the lender. So if there's something that happens down the road, we've got some backing, but they don't do the program. You still make the loan through us, you make your payments to a mortgage company. So it's nothing like that. It's a 3.5% down payment. And probably what I want to talk about is like, it's the most flexible program.
Right.
Lots of people can get qualified for FHA.
And correct me if I'm wrong, because again, it's staying in my own lane.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, I think they have different flexibility when it comes to credit score, income.
Yeah.
All the things we talked about in rural development.
That's restrictive.
That restrictive. FHA opens up that door for the possibility of getting qualified if you can't go USDA.
Absolutely. That's exactly right. Like like I said, Dennis has been doing this 8 years, so he knows. And that's exactly right. If you don't fit in this really small box of USDA or VA, because if you're not a veteran, you're not eligible, your next probably best option is FHA.
Correct.
So 3.5% down payment. And so it does. And one of the things, we didn't mention this on USDA, but it's got some restrictions that we can talk about it more in detail one-on-one, but FHA has a more flexible underwriting. So if you've got some past credit issues, it's a good program. It allows for a higher debt to income ratio than some of the other ones. So because you bring 3.5% to the table, you bring some cash to the table to make this happen, you get some benefits, and
Like
it does
some
it
skin in
opens
the
it up.
game.
Absolutely.
Right.
Now let's get in the game. We're gonna make it happen for you.
And the good thing I found about FHA is that it's a very minimal down payment, 3.5%. You know, if you're buying a $200,000 house, that's a little over $6,000. You know, most people with a family get that or close to that in a tax return. So
Absolutely.
it's very minimal to take ownership into the house.
Yeah, and that's a great point. I'm glad that you brought that up because tax season's right around the corner, right? We go from New Year to tax season real quickly. And I don't know what tax season's gonna look like this year, right? I don't know if it's gonna be as fast as it has been. Like, you're gonna get your refund as fast as before because of just everything that's been going on. But when it comes, when you figure out how much your tax refund's gonna be, and then when we're gonna get it, it's a great time to look at this option.
Correct.
You know, look at what would it take for me to buy the house that I need. And so it's a good time even now. I know it's January. I know taxes may not come in till March, April, May, depending on when you file. It's a good time to chat with us now about how do I get qualified? Because if we have other issues, let's work on that while we're waiting for our down payment.
Correct.
Right? So don't hold off until your refund comes, because when my refund comes in, I'm buying me something pretty. Right?
Right.
So if I have a plan and I know what I'm doing with it, then I can, when it comes in, I'm instantly going to go buy a house instead of a new pair of shoes or whatever. Right? Or a car, depending on where you are in your life. This may be the year that you want to buy a house, and let's make that happen. And taxes is a great option.
Definitely.
So all three of these loan programs are government backed. They all require a 580 credit score or higher for us. And they're all up to 30-year fixed rate loans. And we've talked about over and over again, interest rates are really low.
Correct.
on all of that. So it's a really good time to consider those options. Last program that we're going to go through, we're trying to go through all the vanilla programs, all the really easy deals, is our conventional home loan program. And it's not really backed by the government. We've got some private insurance behind it. And people hear this loan and they think they need a 20% down payment. Like your old school, maybe Papa told you you needed 20%. It's just not true.
Had this conversation this weekend.
Because that's just what they think. Yeah. And so if you're a first-time home buyer, you haven't owned a home in the last 3 years, you're considered a first-time home buyer or a second-time home buyer. So the first-time home buyer is a 3% down payment, which is even less than FHA. And then a first-time home buyer, or the other one, if you've owned one before, is a 5% down payment. So it's still really low. Like I said, the first-time home buyer program is 3.5. I know there's a lot of marketing out there, like first-time home buyer, no money down, get a lot of money, and there's really no true first-time home buyer program other than this, and it requires a 3% down payment. Conventional loans are harder for buyers to get qualified for.
Right. And just to interject about the first-time home buyer program, most first-time home buyers I talk to, they say they want to take advantage of a first-time home buyer program. And I tell them that, there's really not a specific program for first-time home buyers.
And there's there's not really a lot of benefits to even this one that we're talking about.
Correct. I mean, I tell them, most first-time home buyers take advantage of the USDA program. But again, you have location restrictions around that. So there's really no first-time home buyer program per se.
There is not. You are awesome today, like really speaking the language, because I think a lot of mortgage companies, they put out marketing like that. And it's kind of skeezy a little bit because they entice them with a first-time home buyer program that doesn't really have any value because they're a first-time home buyer. USDA, you don't have to be a first-time home buyer.
Correct.
FHA, you don't have to be a first-time home buyer. Like, those programs are available over and over again as long as you fit the program requirements. I don't believe in sleazy marketing. Like, I want to tell you the truth. I want to be transparent. The only true first-time home buyer program out there is conventional. It requires a 3% down payment. And it's not always your best option. Sometimes it is, but it's not always. So this particular program is a little more restrictive. It has a 620 credit score requirement, so it's higher than the others. But really, when we look at our buyers, we like to see a 700 and above on these. And that's really having to do with the rates and the PMI, the private mortgage insurance for putting less than a 20% down payment. If you have less than a 700, it doesn't usually make sense. FHA is normally a better fit.
Right.
And some people have a preference on what kind of loan they want. And at the end of the day, I want you to have the loan that's best for you and gets you into a house.
Right.
So we're going to discuss those options. And if you want to pay a higher rate, just use a conventional loan, like I'm fine. I don't know why you would do that, but you could.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So we talked a little bit about the other programs with restrictions on the property. Conventional, when you see that come through on a listing, you're probably really excited.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it requires a larger down payment and a little bit better credit score, and things of that. And it's lower as far as debt to income and things like that. The other things we look at, you've got some skin in the game. And so like people, the property is less, doesn't require quite as much.
Correct.
Yeah. Last thing, where can this money come from? How many times have you had a buyer say like, I got all that at home? Cash money at the house.
Yeah, it don't work. Y'all have to source it.
Yeah.
Show
You
where
have
it come from.
Know where it comes from.
Yeah.
And so even if you take money from your check every month, you take $100 and you put it under your mattress, it's not impossible for us to use that money, but it's really hard.
Mhm.
And like this process is already sort of challenging, right?
Right.
We don't want to make it any harder on ourselves.
Right.
It's like cash doesn't work. You pulling money out of your checks, get it in the bank ASAP. We look at the last 60 days to see where this money has come from. And really what they're looking for is like not legal funds. Maybe you did something you weren't supposed to and like you have this money. We know that there's other reasons for cash to be at home, but that's kind of what we have to live by, right? And then you can get a gift from a relative on all of these programs. So if you have a mom, a dad, a grandpa, anybody like that who is willing and able to give you a down payment, that's an option. That's definitely an option. So we want to talk about that, and someone who's willing to do that for you. You just give us the okay. We'll chat with them and see if that's workable. And then there's several qualified down payment assistance programs.
Mhm.
You ever worked with that before?
Yeah, so I mean that's another thing. First time home buyer program. You know, it's through the city. There's one.
Yeah, there's a city one and a parish one
Right.
here in Lafayette. That's probably the most common that we see.
Right.
It can be it's a piggyback. It's a down payment assistance loan, basically.
Right.
And you have to qualify, so you have to make less than a certain amount of money and have a certain credit score. But they'll give you this if you buy in the parish of Lafayette, it's through Lafayette City. They'll give $8,000 to help you with down payment and closing costs.
Mhm.
So it's a great little loan. It's a very low interest rate. It's like $65 a month,
Right.
but it gets you into a house now as long as you qualify for those programs. Yeah, awesome. Well, I think that we've covered so much today.
Definitely.
Anything else you want to add?
No, I just want to say that, well, there's one thing as far as closing costs.
Yeah.
Don't think you have to have this absurd amount of money saved for closing costs. The way we can overcome that is asking the seller to pay your closing costs as a buyer. And that's common in this market. So
Yeah.
don't get discouraged if you don't have, $5, $10, $20,000 saved up. Give Ashley a call, see what she can do. She may be able to qualify you now without all of that.
Yeah.
So,
Like I said, I think it's a good time to start thinking about if I want to buy a house in 2021,
right.
not right now, not in 3 months, anytime in 2021, reach out to my team, visit us at completemortgagela.com. You can always send a message to us, let us know, and let's work it up. So if you think at all it's even a remote possibility to buy a house this year, let's talk now. And maybe it's not the time to do it now.
Right.
Maybe it's in 6 months, maybe it's before Christmas this year. I want to say next year, this year.
Right.
But let's talk, and then let's look at those numbers and figure it out. And then we can kind of go from there.
Right. And a lot of people are afraid to pull their credit.
Yeah.
But that's really the first thing that we have. It's like we pull the credit and we get an analysis of what your situation is, and we'll be able to tell you exactly what you need to do to be able to qualify.
Right.
Without pulling the credit, we have nothing to really analyze to give you a route that you need to take to be able to get qualified.
At that point, without credit, we're making a bunch of assumptions.
Correct.
Maybe we could do this, maybe we could do that.
Correct.
And that's really not a way to make a plan. Like you have to got some solid things. So I think we've covered a lot today. I think there's also some things we need to cover in the next couple of weeks, which are closing costs, like
Right.
what is that and how much is that? So I think we're gonna do that next week because we brought it up. And then, dear goodness, we are probably gonna have to cover credit reports and credit
Right.
scores and like what that all entails, because you're right, that's probably the most fearful thing for people is having their credit pulled.
Yeah.
And they're just nervous on what that might do. So great options. Dennis, what's the best way for them to reach you?
The best way to reach me is on my phone via text or calling me at 337-852-5236.
We will drop that in the comments. And so if you want to reach out to Dennis and just kind of figure out what his process is, what he can do to help you get into a home this year, answer some questions that we maybe didn't cover on this. I know Dennis is great and he'll take great care of you guys. So thank you all so much. Appreciate it. Have a happy, happy new year.
Thank y'all.